Chapter 126, Road to the Underworld. The sunlight was scorching in the noon. Before the sun reached the god's fragmented face, it emitted a piercing light, making it difficult for mortals to raise their heads and look straight at it. The god behind the sun was high and mighty. To all living beings, he was an existence that surpassed time and space. Regardless of day or night, regardless of reality or dreams, regardless of the past or future, he would always be eternal, witnessing the changes in this world, witnessing life and death, and also witnessing this chaotic world that had become cruel because of his appearance. As for the remaining heat in the sunlight, it seemed to be affected by the ferociousness of the god's fragmented face and became filled with malice. It was as though it was unwilling to comply with the heavenly Tao in this season and leave silently. It started to crazily release all its heat and invaded every corner of the Seven Blood Eyes main city, wanting to vaporize all life. This invisible poison invaded even the shade of the trees and under the eaves. Even when the sea breeze blew over, it couldn't disperse it. It was like poison that seeped into the marrow and bones. Just like the corner of Xu Qing's Taoist robe, that place looked normal, but if one took a closer look, they would see that there was some powder on it, and most of the powder had disappeared by now. The aura it emitted was similar to the heat that was affected by the god's fragmented face. It carried malice and malevolence as it invaded Xu Qing's flesh and bones under his Taoist robe. The speed of this invasion was extremely fast and revealed avarice. From its appearance to its invasion, it only took a few breaths of time. Xu Qing calmly glanced at the corner of the clothes. His eyes narrowed as he walked toward the berth. The powder on the corner of his shirt was something that the merfolk youth had secretly left behind during the fight earlier. If it was someone else, it would probably be very difficult for them to detect it even now. After all, this poison was colorless and odorless. To a certain extent, this might not even be poison. However, Xu Qing was proficient in the Tao of medicine. This characteristic caused at least 7 to 8 similar medicinal primers to appear in his mind. As for which one it was, he needed to go back and analyze it. However, no matter what, after coming into contact with him several times, Xu Qing's killing intent toward this merfolk youth rose even more. "It's time to kill the fish," Xu Qing mumbled as he walked to the harbor's berth. The instant he stepped onto the magic boat, he immediately activated his protective barrier, isolating all sounds from the outside world and causing the inside of the magic boat to be completely silent. He sat cross-legged in the cabin and directly tore off the corner of his Taoist robe. He held it in his hand and took a closer look. His left hand then formed a seal, and a ball of flames instantly floated up from Xu Qing's palm. Although the sea transformation are focused on water, it was normal for spell cultivators to cultivate many types of spells support. There were many introductions on the cultivation art jade slip. Xu Qing waved his left hand, and the fireball flew toward the corner of his shirt, enveloping it and starting to burn it. The sizzling sounds continued, and faint smoke drifted out. The flickering light from the fire illuminated Xu Qing's face. He watched as the burning corner of his shirt continued to twist, and the red lines from the burning edges rapidly filled the entire cloth. Wherever they passed, the gray corner of his shirt would turn into ashes. A few breaths later, the corner of his shirt was completely burned, and the flame slowly extinguished. Xu Qing looked at the ashes in his palm and smelled the smoke coming from them as he mumbled, "This is the blood of ghost desire. It's poison, but not poison." The pharmacopoeia grandmother had left behind mentioned ghost desire. These creatures that lived in the deep sea were very rare. Xu Qing also had 2 of them, but he didn't find any supplementary herbs, so he didn't touch them. He knew that after its blood was treated, it would become a holy medicine that could heal injuries. However, if he used other methods to mix it, under the 2 extremes of yin and yang, the aura emitted by his blood would be loathed by the vast majority of mutated beasts. There are also the characteristics of the Enlightenment Cross. Xu Qing closed his eyes. After coming to a conclusion, he opened his eyes again. His gaze was like a pitch-black deep pool, incomparably cold. Although Grandmother Bay's pharmacopoeia didn't mention what would happen after the 2 types of medicinal ingredients were mixed together. According to medicinal knowledge, the latter could greatly magnify this disgust. A slight disgust would make the mutated beasts avoid the source. But if it was serious, it would be equivalent to attracting the killing intent of the mutated beasts, because extreme dislike was evil. Hence, after these 2 were mixed, they would form a special medicinal liquid. Those who came into contact with it would be tainted and invaded by its aura. This was because it wasn't poison and wouldn't act up. In fact, it even had a slight nourishing effect on the body, so it was almost impossible for it to be detected. It was even more difficult to dispel it, and it could last for at least several years. As for its effect, it was to attract intense disgust of mutated beasts. Like when Xu Qing first participated in the Thunder Team's operation in the Forbidden Zone in the scavenger campsite. The small vial of medicinal catalyst in Barbaric Ghost's leather pouch was this type of medicine. Barbaric Ghost's medicinal catalyst was the same as the aura that invaded Xu Qing. However, the ingredients couldn't be compared. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. While I'm in the sect, I won't be in too much danger from this aura. But if I go out to sea, Xu Qing was very clear that once he brought this aura out to sea, he would definitely not be able to return. This method of killing left no corpse or bones at all. It was sinister like a venomous snake and was effective for an extremely long time. If it wasn't for Xu Qing's Tao of medicine, it would be very difficult for others to guess who the enemy was even after death. I wonder if you have the ability to sense my poison. A cold glint appeared in Xu Qing's eyes. The merfolk youth had poisoned him, but in reality, just like the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. When Xu Qing attacked earlier, he had also poisoned the other party. This poison was also harmless and also a mark. However, the merfolk youth's mark on him attracted the evil intent of unknown mutated beasts in the sea, while his mark on the other party was the footsteps of the Grim Reaper on the shore. Xu Qing's expression didn't change at all. He kept the burning ashes and opened his storage bag. He glanced at the medicinal pills inside before looking at the surrounding medicine cabinets. He wasn't good at detoxifying poison, especially with this kind of aura that wasn't really poison. So the recovery ability the purple crystal provided wouldn't be of any effect. But he was good at poison. Xu Qing calmly took out some poison powder and poison pills and swallowed them expressionlessly. He then mixed 7 to 8 types of poison powder and scattered them. He then inhaled deeply and absorbed them all into his body. At the next moment, his body trembled violently, and sweat slowly appeared on his forehead. However, he still sat there cross-legged, silently enduring the pain of the poison burning in his body. He was brewing the killing intent in his heart, while his mind was as calm as the calm before the storm. His poison burned his internal organs, bones, and flesh. Since he couldn't get rid of the aura of the ghost desire and the enlightenment cross, he might as well use poison to invade them. After that, he would use his own recovery abilities to recover. This process lasted for a full 4 hours. When it was dusk outside, Xu Qing slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were bloodshot, and the poison in his body had been completely expelled due to the astonishing recovery rate of his body. At the same time, the aura of ghost desire was also expelled. After carefully checking and confirming, Xu Qing looked at the setting sun outside the cabin. His gaze was deep as he mumbled, "Very soon, he'll be able to have a good sleep." He silently stood up and washed his body before closing his eyes to rest. A while later, the sun in the sky seemed to have given way to the moon. The sky started getting dark. The sparse stars in the sky were like fireflies in the cemetery. They were insignificant and only served as embellishment. This night was suitable for killing. Xu Qing opened his eyes and quietly placed the black iron stick in his sleeve. He then sharpened the dagger and stuffed it into his shoe. After that, he checked his poison inventory and calmly arranged them. Only then did he walk out of the magic boat. His speed erupted and disappeared in an instant. The moonlight scattered on the ground, giving off a cold feeling. It shone on the cats that were moving forward in dark areas. It also shone on the figure of the youth, who was like the wind and his lone wolf-like eyes, making his gaze look even colder. The sea breeze blew over, bringing with it a chill. It landed beside the youth and lifted his long robe, causing his black hair to flutter. However, it couldn't disperse the unique aura that permeated the main city that came from his mark. In the end, it turned into a whistling sound in the youth's ears, like a horn of killing intent. He was going to kill.